live to react to a massive trade that went down earlier today. Carson Wentz, former high first-round pick, second overall, borderline MVP in 2017, just his second year in the NFL, spiraled out of control. The Eagles could no longer handle Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz and the Eagles saw things differently for their future. They have decided to move on to a new but familiar location for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has been traded to the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are coached by former offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles and former Carson Wentz, pretty much best coach he ever had. So if there was a situation that made sense for Carson Wentz, for him to regain his form, and I believe that's a phrase that I think a lot of people are going to be saying over the next couple of days when it really comes to this trade. Carson Wentz had one incredible year in the NFL. That team ended up winning the Super Bowl without him, with Nick Foles. In that season, it looked like Carson Wentz was going to become the MVP of the NFL. But that season was an outlier season for the rest of his career. The rest of his career has been pretty average. He's been around the 15th best quarterback on average in the NFL in 2016, 18, 19, and 20. Now, do we determine that as a good move for Indianapolis? Do we think that's an upgrade over Phillip Rivers? And do we think this is the right move for the future of the Eagles organization and franchise to end up trading that piece away? A guy that has proven in the NFL he can be good if things around him are good. But a guy that maybe has lost all confidence in the people around him in the organization and wasn't worth really restarting with for Philadelphia. They just moved on at the head coach position, which I have a little bit to say about that as well. I have a little rant to go on when it comes to that as well. But Carson Wentz, I feel, is going to be one of the most interesting people in the NFL for 2021. Because I believe we still don't really know what Carson Wentz is. We've seen really awesome Carson Wentz. We've seen really terrible Carson Wentz this season, by the way. And we've seen average Carson Wentz. Maybe a little bit above average Carson Wentz. In the past, I've been a fan of his talent. I really like what he has to offer from a physical standpoint. I think he offers a strong arm. I think he offers a bit of mobility. I think he's a big, strong, tough quarterback. He's good at extending plays. But a lot of those things that are his strengths also are his biggest weaknesses. And I recently have shifted my perspective on how I feel about Carson Wentz. And I recently discussed this on a Bottom Line podcast. I talked about how I wasn't no longer a Carson Wentz guy. And the biggest reason for that was I really don't believe in Carson Wentz as a leader. And I really don't believe in Carson Wentz as a quarterback who has the intelligence and the acumen to be an elite player in this league. Now, as much as we want to talk about quarterbacks need to have the physical ability, more important than anything else is they need to have the intelligence to be able to go through a system, to be able to go through their reads, to be able to make the correct reads, make the correct throws. And I think even more so than that, we saw a mentally weak Carson Wentz this year. Because I don't think we saw anything that would suggest that Carson Wentz physically has fallen off. Maybe he's fallen off in terms of his mechanics. That certainly could be the case when it comes to throwing the ball. where he was one of the more inaccurate quarterbacks this year in the NFL. Maybe injuries have taken a toll on his body to the point where his toughness or the ability to stand in and get hit has taken a little bit of a hit. But overall, you see the same amount of arm strength. You see some moments of him being able to pull off incredible magic like he did in 2017. But more than anything, what we saw in 2020, which was arguably the worst starting quarterback in football this year, we saw a guy that mentally was not confident. He just lacked confidence in himself, in his teammates, and in his coaching staff to put him in a position to play well. And it really felt like Carson Wentz, if everything went wrong for him this past year. So in a way, when you're looking at this trade, I don't think you can be overreactionary in any direction here. So if you're overreactionary to the point of Carson Wentz is awful, Carson Wentz is terrible, he's never going to be good in this league, he can't play at all, then you're wrong. But if you're reacting to it as if Carson Wentz is the 2017 MVP, he's going to go to Indianapolis with a good offensive line, get protected, and really sling it and have a great year, that's also wrong. Because the evidence shows us that, look, good supporting cast or bad supporting cast, the guy absolutely positively stunk it up this year. And throughout most of his career, he has been average. So, in terms of the details of the trade, the Philadelphia Eagles agreed to a trade for a Indianapolis 2021 third round pick and a conditional 2022 second round pick that could turn into a first round pick. So that's interesting to me because I don't exactly know the details. I know they're out there somewhere, like Carson Wentz. I should actually show you the graphic that I made so that you guys can see it. But Carson Wentz, I think if he plays like 70% of the snaps or 75, somewhere in there, then it turns into, and they also make the playoffs, that is, it turns into a first round pick in 2022. So that's really interesting because basically what the Colts got here is a win-win scenario, basically, right? So, and sorry, the Eagles have a win-win scenario for the draft picks. Because if Carson Wentz sucks and their evaluation of him is that he's okay, but we can move on and it's better if we move on, then they get a third round pick and a second round pick. But if Carson Wentz somehow gets turned around and he plays just as good as he's ever played, then they at least get a first round pick and a mid round pick as well. So with those details, I think it provides you, if you're an Eagles fan, with a little bit of a security blanket in knowing that, okay, even if he's good, we get a first round pick if he's good. So that's a great thing if you are an Eagles fan. Now, if you're a Colts fan, you're saying, hopefully we do give up the first round pick in 2022 because we want him to be awesome. And I think if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, they're not going to make the playoffs. The absolute worst thing would be if Carson Wentz sucks and they still make the playoffs. Like, that would be the worst thing. Or he's just, not good. Like, he's like the 20th best quarterback in the league. Like, if you're a Colts fan, you want Carson Wentz to be, near top 10 territory in order to give up that first round pick, right? But imagine for the Eagles, if the Colts and Wentz don't succeed, but the team succeeds, and they somehow get, let's say they go 9-7, they make the playoffs, right? That would be the worst thing possible because then the Colts would have to give up their first round pick and they would be basically out of a quarterback and a first round pick. So it's definitely a bit of a gamble there. Now, you also look at it as the contract. So there's a massive thing with the Matthew Stafford trade and the Jared Goff trade was the contract. And the reason they got the 2 first round picks was because of the contract. So when you look at the Carson Wentz thing, this is the most dead money ever in the history of the NFL that the Philadelphia Eagles had to go through, had to pay or will have to pay in order to make this trade a reality, okay? So, the most dead cap ever. So, I don't think the Eagles were simply saying, we want to trade Wentz because we want to move on to Jalen Hurts or a rookie or whoever it may be. They're also saying this Wentz thing is just over. It's not going to work out. We're done and we need to move on. We need to admit our mistake of extending him to a long contract, a big money contract, and let's move on and let's just admit our mistake. And to be honest, that's the best way about going about things, right? The Rams did the exact same thing. And I feel like good organizations do the exact same thing. The Patriots do that every year, it seems. And now not as big of a move as Carson Wentz, but, you know, Bill Belichick, for example, would trade a guy for, let's say, get him for a third-round pick. And if he doesn't work out, he'd immediately cut him, right? That happens with the Patriots. They go through as many moves and make as many mistakes as anybody, but they also succeed a lot because they make those moves, right? With the Eagles and the Rams, I feel like they've made good moves by simply admitting when their moves are bad, if that makes sense. The biggest issue with a lot of general managers and a lot of front offices in the NFL, like let's, for example, say Jacksonville, is for too long they try to force the issue. So they try to force, a square peg into a round hole, let's just say. If that's the saying, I don't even know. You go and you make the move that's necessary at this moment in time. If you know Carson Wentz is average or below that, make the move because he's not going to be your guy, okay? With Jacksonville, back to the example, they tried to make Blake Bortles their quarterback 3 years past they knew he sucked. So the problem was, even though they had Jalen Ramsey and they had Calais Campbell, the best defense in the league, an absolutely loaded offense, they had Blake Bortles. So they weren't winning anything and they forced it. They tried to make it work too much, too long. And that's not the way to go about it in the NFL. You need to learn from your mistakes quickly. So I feel that's what the Eagles did, even though they're giving up the most dead money of all time. And that's certainly going to be something, but I feel it was the right move for Philadelphia. I believe it wasn't just the right move, but it was the necessary move. The biggest thing for me with Carson Wentz has always gone back to the reports of him as a teammate, the reports of him as a leader. And again, guys, I am not an Eagle. I am not an Eagles player, Eagles GM, scout, coach, but from all of the sources where the smoke is, the fire is, right? And with Carson Wentz, it just feels like players don't like him. I don't know what it is, okay? And I'm not going to say that for everyone. But when players literally go on podcasts and talk about how Nick Foles was better or Nick Foles made the team play harder, or the actual evidence that even if Carson Wentz was statistically better, the team performed better with Nick Foles, that's a little weird. It's a little something off about that, to me, personally. Like, I think the biggest thing that's overlooked about the quarterback position, besides the mental acumen you need to play it, is the leadership component. The component that we saw this year with Tom Brady and the Bucs. That, hey, Tom Brady's not 2007 Tom Brady, but what Tom Brady still has is impeccable confidence and leadership ability. And when your quarterback, who is the face of your franchise, is lacking that confidence, your team lacks that confidence. And when your quarterback is not a great leader, does not relate to his players well, does not vocally get through to his players, that is going to affect your entire team. And when a guy that's not even that good at quarterback, Nick Foles, comes in and does well on numerous occasions, not just once, does well twice, it's a little weird, just to me. So that is where I've shifted my perspective of Carson Wentz. I always liked Wentz before because of his talent. I saw it. I saw the physical talent. I saw the improvisation. I saw that ability. But you need to be able to couple the ability with everything else that it takes to play the position at a high level. And to me, Carson Wentz simply does not have that. And he does not have the face of the franchise components, in my opinion. Now, that's not to say that I don't think Carson Wentz won't be successful in Indy, because I think he will be. And here's why. So Indianapolis obviously has Frank Reich. Indianapolis would not make this trade. They would not make this move if they were not confident that Frank Reich couldn't at least help fix or create confidence in Carson Wentz as their quarterback. Secondly, they're a team that is built right now to win. They had Phillip Rivers in there, who, let's be honest, Rivers was better than Wentz last year, but Rivers is not a superior talent. He's not a much better quarterback at this point, at his older age than Carson Wentz. So I think from a production standpoint, Carson Wentz will be successful because what he needs is to be protected up front. He needs a coach and a system that allows him to be confident and allows his improvisation to take hold and to basically be his main skill. The thing with Wentz is he is a better player when he's not in and playing within structure. And that's the thing that I think, that's why he takes so many sacks, right? So he was sacked the most of any quarterback in the NFL this season, 50 times. Now, the problem I have with that is he sacked himself 40 times. So think about that for a second. Only 10 of the sacks that were responsible on the Eagles' offensive line fell on the Eagles' offensive line. So for those of you that are talking about Carson Wentz being this guy that if he goes to the Colts, he'll be much better because of the protection. Now, while I do believe that because Carson Wentz was at his best when he had an elite offensive line, and any quarterback is better with an elite offensive line, and I think they have a better system there. Now, we could talk about the weapons being equal or worse in Indianapolis, in my opinion, as they are likely to lose T.Y. Hilton, and right now they're bare bones at the wide receiver position. So unless they make a move there, which I think they will, whether that's Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, they really need to do that. Their tight end position, pretty vanilla to me. I mean, it's average, and then the running game is good. But, I mean, you had a good running game or a good running back at the very least in Philadelphia. You had much better tight ends. Dallas Goedert is a better player than anybody in Indianapolis right now. So I don't think the weapons is the reason Wentz could get better. I think it's the system, and I think it's the offensive line because Wentz needs time to think. He's not a guy that's a thinker. He's not a quick processor. He needs the time to be able to make his reads and then improvise from there. Now, what I was talking about with the sacks is 40 of his 50 sacks were on him, meaning that he held the ball for 4 or more seconds 40 times this year when he was sacked. So that is just ridiculous. Maybe that's his flaw, and maybe Frank Reich can help fix that. But you need to fix it. I mean, no offensive line, no matter how good they are. You could be the 1994 Dallas Cowboys. You can't protect a quarterback for 4 seconds every play. His inability to make the right decision to get rid of the ball has been his biggest issue from the quarterback position from that perspective. So while he lacked wide receivers and he lacked consistent offensive lines and he had a lot of injuries around him, a lot of the issues with the Eagles were Carson Wentz on offense because he held onto the ball. He wasn't making the fast decision, the quick decision, and he wasn't trusting his playmakers to get him the ball. When you turn on Jalen Hurts' offense, you see a quarterback that's willing to get his playmakers the ball in space, throw it up to them in double teams, or just make plays. And Jalen Hurts actually is better with his mobility to escape pressure to make plays that way, or to run, to open up the running game through his legs, through his ability to run. And he was also more accurate as a passer. Carson Wentz was very poor as a passer in 2020. In fact, PFF ranked him as the 31st best quarterback last year. That's basically dead last, second to last in the NFL. And I think he's better than that, and I think he will be better than that. He's on a better team. He should win more games. But I think for people to say that Carson Wentz isn't the issue with Carson Wentz, you're wrong. Part of it, most of it, in fact, is Carson Wentz. I don't think it was Doug Peterson. I don't think it was the offensive line or the wide receivers. I think a lot of it was Carson Wentz. And whether that was mental, physical, or whatever, it's Carson Wentz, okay? So my question really is, which Carson Wentz are we getting? And can Frank Reich fix Carson Wentz? I think that's the biggest question. So let's just take a look at his stats just to give you a quick refresher to what he did in 2020, because I know that was not exactly his shining moment in the NFL. But this is the guy that the Colts traded for. Just keep that in mind, okay? So the Colts traded for a quarterback that went 3-8-1. He averaged 218 yards per game and had 16 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. He also had a passer rating of 72.8. A passer rating of under 73 in 2020 is absolutely, positively disgusting. That is, you cannot. I don't care if you have a high school wide receiving core. To have a 73 passer rating in the NFL in 2020 is gross, okay? It is gross. Now, let's take a look and compare this to the quarterback that we saw in the previous 2 seasons, which is much better, okay? So in 2018 and 2019, we saw a quarterback that went 14-13. That's fairly average, 263 yards a game, a much better touchdown to interception ratio, 48-14. That's actually very good, and a passer rating of 96.7. Much, much better. This guy is closer to top 15 area. This guy is a guy that you could see in Indianapolis if Frank Reich helps fix some of these things that are wrong with Carson Wentz. When it comes to the mechanics, when it comes to the mental processing, when it comes to the confidence, when it comes to the comfortability of Carson Wentz being there. That's what I really believe. So maybe that offensive line will help, but I do believe they need to go after some wide receivers in Indy. I think that they need to really focus on allowing this guy to get his confidence underneath him. I think those things are very, very important. If they get the 2020 guy, then forget about it. They're giving up that first round, or they're not giving up that first round pick. You're going to keep that. So Carson Wentz is interesting. I think, again, he's one of the most interesting guys in the NFL, in my opinion. Now, I do have a couple more things here for him, just like going through his PFF grades, a couple more interesting stats that I found on Twitter. A lot of people talking about this, of course. So his PFF grades and rank by year. So this is like, ranking not necessarily his production or his stats, but grading him play by play for how good he was. And I often find this very good information for quarterbacks specifically, because quarterbacks, more so than any other position in the NFL, you can actually see how well they're playing, even if the team isn't playing well. Like, if a quarterback makes a good pass and the guy drops it, you can still see that. Like, when a corner misses a coverage, you don't necessarily know what his responsibility was, but you know that the quarterback's supposed to throw the ball. Like, you know that. So I think PFF does a good job with that sort of stuff. So 2016, he was ranked 21st. That was his rookie season. Okay, fair enough. Not great, below average, but that's his rookie year. He has that amazing year where he ranks 5th in 2017. He was unsustainably amazing on third down, which was the main reason they were so good. 2018, 79.4. That's 14th in the league. Pretty average. 2019, again, 14th, 76.5. And then in 2020, 31st. So basically, if you take away his rookie season, he's had one great year, one shit year, and then 2 solid years, or maybe even good years. Now, again, guys, I talked a little bit about the sacks. This is just another proof of evidence here when it comes to Carson Wentz and why protection is so important, and why really pressure is the end-all be-all for this guy. So Warren Sharp actually tweeted this, and if you're not following Warren Sharp, one of the best guys analytically in the NFL, period. So he put, out of 133 quarterback seasons since 2016 with at least 100 passing attempts under pressure, Carson Wentz 2020 EPA under pressure ranked 133rd. So dead last. So Carson Wentz was the worst quarterback under pressure in the history of football from 2016 on. So that issue number one is pressure. And maybe you could say the same thing about Phillip Rivers, was he was not great with pressure with the Chargers, and then he got a lot better in that regard with the Colts. So maybe you could point to that. But I'll say this about Phillip Rivers: even though he's not physically as gifted as Carson Wentz, he is much smarter and much more cerebral, and certainly has much more experience. And the other thing is that I already brought up here is he is a much, much, much better leader. So I think the ultimate question there with Carson Wentz is, what is the psyche of Carson Wentz? And that is my final note for this reaction. I want to hear from you guys. Get in that comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know your thoughts on the move, on the big trade, Indy and Philadelphia. Let's check out your comments here. But before I do, make sure that you do spike that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more NFL reactions just like this. So let's take a look at this comment section. Oh, and of course, we don't have the comments. So that's cool. Every time I do one of these reactions, we don't have the comments. I think we didn't have the comments for the Matthew Stafford video either, which is unfortunate. But hey, you guys comment. If you're watching this right now, I appreciate you because I know there's no live chat. So make sure you get in that comment section down below and leave your thoughts right when this video ends, which will be shortly in the next 5 minutes. So leave your thoughts and I'll definitely reply to you. Or if you have a question about this move, then I'll definitely reply to you as quickly as possible and give you my reaction to what you thought. So yeah, let me know if you love this move, if you hate this move for Indianapolis, if you love this move or you hate this move for Philadelphia. Now, I didn't really cover as much the Eagles' point of view and where they're going from here. So let's end on that note. So obviously they have Jalen Hurts, and I was a big fan of Jalen Hurts coming out of college. And I was also a big fan of Jalen Hurts this season for the most part. I think maybe slightly his play was overrated because, he was doing some awesome things, but he was good for a rookie, but I don't think good for like a normal quarterback, if that makes sense. Like, we were impressed because of what he was doing as a rookie, but not necessarily impressed if he was just a normal Joe Schmo quarterback every year. So Jalen Hurts, I think, is a unique player because I think he's one of the few players that you can build around in terms of his actual rushing and athletic ability, and you can add that to your running game. And I also think that he's a guy that is pretty accurate and actually underrated in the short game. And he also has, of course, great improvisation and ability and patience. And I think what Jalen Hurts gives you over a Carson Wentz is a belief and a confidence and a leadership that I thought he showed in college. And I think he also has quickly shown in the NFL. So I am a fan of Jalen Hurts, and I hope that's who they stay with. I hope they're not picking a first-round quarterback because I don't think it's worth it. I think you stick with Jalen Hurts. Now, if they do want to draft somebody in the first round, they do have a high enough pick to do so, or they could use these picks to trade up. I would love for my team to trade for Jalen Hurts because I know that he would be great on the New England Patriots. So I'm just throwing that out there. Eagles, if you're watching, trade Jalen Hurts to the Patriots for a pick, and you guys can pick your future quarterback. So I'm just throwing that out there. Let me know what you think about that. But yeah, I think Jalen Hurts should be the guy. If he's not, I'll be a tad disappointed. I'd rather just bring in a veteran. If that's like maybe Nick Foles, for example, bring him back to Philadelphia, help him tutor the guy. That would be pretty cool. Obviously, Nick Foles is familiar and he can play if need be. So that's my overall thoughts on the move. I'll say this. Carson Wentz does remind me a little bit physically of Andrew Luck. A little bit. So like, Colts fans, you're not quite getting Andrew Luck, but you're getting a player that kind of reminds me a little bit of Andrew Luck physically, so they're similar players, and their offenses, they're a part of this Frank Reich offense. Andrew Luck was for that 1 year. And the final note I had is I said I would rant a little bit about the coaching thing. So I really thought that their decision for the head coach spot was based on that Carson Wentz would be back. And now I'm very disappointed, more so in the coaching hire than I ever have been before. Because my thought was you're bringing in a Frank Reich guy from Indianapolis to help fix Carson Wentz. And now that Carson Wentz isn't there, I don't really understand this hire. Like, you had Josh McDaniels there, who I thought was a much better candidate, but I understood the move and I understand why they hired who they hired because of that potential there. But now I don't really get it. So also let me know what you think about that. Because the more I think about it, the more I kind of hate that hire. Because Carson Wentz, I thought, was the main factor in making that hire and firing Doug Peterson ultimately. Because I think Doug Peterson will get a job somewhere soon. So, yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on the trade. The Colts, the Eagles. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Unfortunately, we didn't have the live comments, but things happen, I guess. I don't know. YouTube continues to do their thing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the channel for more BLV. It's Mitch. Peace.